Hey, Joe here. I wanted to do a video, I guess, on a variety of topics here around both wave shaping and amplitude modulation. So I just kind of wanted to start out with a quick primer or maybe a review of what amplitude modulation, AM, and ring modulation are. I know sometimes I kind of forget the difference between the two, but just kind of wanted to quickly show those, and as well as how to build them on the ER-301. So I think the easiest thing to see them with is sine waves, because they're kind of fundamental. So let's put in a sine wave. And we'll just start it at 220 hertz here. All right, so first thing let's do, let's put a linear VCA here. And let's set its modulation source here to be another sine wave. And we'll slow this down into the LFO rate first. And we'll turn up the gain a bit here, and we'll turn up the volume. So when you modulate the volume or the amplitude of a sine wave or any waveform with an LFO type signal, we'd call that tremolo. So I guess that's an effect you'd see commonly used on guitar or maybe pianos or organs. So that's what that sounds like. And you can kind of see on the scope there how it's behaving. It's just kind of modulating the amplitude up and down. As we start to bring this up into the audio rate, some strange things start to happen. Let's turn the volume down for a second. You'll notice that on the spectrum analyzer, now instead of kind of one band, we've got two bands. And if I turn this slowly back down and up, back down to the LFO range, you'll notice what's kind of freaky about this is that our fundamental tone, which is right now an A at 220, kind of disappears as we turn this up. So this is called ring mod, and the difference between ring mod and amplitude modulation is that you kind of lose that carrier frequency. So back up with the volume again. And back up with the frequency of the modulator. So you notice as I increase the frequency of the modulator, the distance between these bands gets further and further apart. It's actually adding and subtracting the difference between those two. So we've got a 220 hertz carrier, and it's adding 73.4 hertz to it and subtracting 73.4 hertz to it. And those are the two bands that you see there. So kind of the only other note about ring mod here, well, maybe I guess a couple more. So you might wonder what happens to that lower band on the left-hand side as you go below 0. So let's bring it up to somewhere above 220, which would be 220 minus 220 is 0. And you can watch what happens to that band on the left. Crazy, huh? Kind of wraps around there. So if we bring it up to 440 hertz, we've got 220 is the carrier, minus 440 is negative 220, but it actually wraps around and gives us a band at 220. And another one at 660, which is the carrier 220 plus the modulator 440. So that's ring mod. So the thing about ring mod, because you lose that carrier, I think it's certainly not a rule. I mean, it's a modular synthesizer. You can do what you want, but I guess you often see this as an effect, right? More so than I guess a synthesis technique. So to just kind of demonstrate that a little bit, so is that we're using sine waves here, and these are obviously simple, and you're not required to use sine waves. But let's just kind of show this as an effect. So down here on track 4. I've got some audio coming in off of the radio music module that Kel built for me, and this is what that sounds like.
And it is with humility and hope that we take this step. As the Secretary General of the United Nations.
All right, so let's ring modulate that. So again, here I'm going to insert a linear VCA. And let's come in here and control the frequency again with a sine wave unit. And we'll go ahead and start maybe at an audio rate up here. Let's just, I don't know, let's start there. And we'll come up and bring up the gain. And we'll turn the volume back up here and just make some adjustments, and you can listen and watch what happens.
An organization of 147 member states who represent almost all of the human inhabitants of the planet Earth, I send greetings on behalf of the people of our planet. We step out of our solar system into the universe seeking only peace and friendship, to teach if we are called upon, to be taught if we are fortunate. We know full well that our planet and all its inhabitants are but a small part of this immense universe that surrounds us, and it is with humility and hope.
All right, so that is ring mod. So what is the difference between ring mod and amplitude modulation? Good question. One I have to refresh my memory on pretty often. Okay, so the difference between ring mod and amplitude modulation is with amplitude modulation, you don't lose that fundamental carrier signal. So you actually you get your original signal, and you also get those two sidebands. And the way you set those up differently is that with ring mod, we're modulating with both a positive and a negative signal, and with amplitude modulation, we're only going to do positives. So let's take a look at that. We're back here on track 1, which was just the sine wave being ring modulated. And if we come back into this VCA, let's see here, let's go ahead and put a rectifier on that. So now we're only getting a positive signal out of here. And actually we've got a lot of bands there, interesting. So let's try this a different way here. Let's still do a sine wave, because we've kind of changed the wave shape here, right? I'm going to take this out. And let's insert another linear VCA after our modulator. But let's only bring the level up to 0.5. So here's our signal, and now it's only half as tall as it used to be. And then let's also insert an offset here. And let's bring its level up to 0.5. All right, so now we've got a sine wave here. It's only half height, and it's only modulating positive frequencies. And let's go ahead and change the frequency of that sine wave. So you can kind of see now we've got the three bands, right? We've got the original sine wave tone in the center there, and then we've got these two side bands that are actually half as loud as the carrier. Okay, so I think that is it on that topic, that ring mod and amplitude modulation.